Hello and good morning. Welcome to Sunrise. I'm Joke Rogers. And beside me is...
Ayo Markin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, the transfer season is still very much open.
Yeah, certainly it is.
Yes, the transfer season. Not on the football field.
Who's transferring to where?
Ah, but come on. Come on. Transfer season is still open towards the 2027 league season.
Yeah. Okay. The transfer season, political transfers.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
the transfer window is still very much open.
Yeah.
Even though it's very slim now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Presidential forms are being picked left, right, and center.
Yes, certainly.
The governorship seats are being picked left, right, and center. I listened to a politician who said a particular candidate has had 3 political parties in 6 months.
If not more.
So it's not me.
It's not you.
I didn't say it. It's not me that said it.
Yes, I think some of these, the clubs they're transferring to are still struggling with, court cases and legal matters, such as the ADC too. Still had one of his cases in court that was reported on yesterday about its leadership disputes.
Interesting. But I still understand that some presidential forms are being sold already.
Yes.
On the platform of that political party. Let me check which of them have picked according to information that is available to us. Former Vice President Atiku has picked. Former Governor and former Minister Amechi has picked. Hayatuddin has also picked. By the way, I see that one on adverts all over the place. All for the ADC presidential forms of guess how much? Google it.
Even yesterday, the Progressives, Governors Forum, while they were dismissing claims that, Hope Uzodinma has stepped down as its chairman, because that was rumors all over the place that Hope Uzodinma is no longer the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum. He said yesterday that everything is okay, we're good, nobody's going anywhere, and the governors have, purchased President Bola Tinubu's nomination form, for presidency next year, and that all the governors are working towards his re-election. So, come on.
Well, that one is not APC. Let them be dealing with their own problem. Yes, but I mean, even that is a bit contentious because on the one hand, we hear about this Progressive Governors Forum issue where only 18 governors are speaking, and I think we understand that even another governor was said to have already been given the responsibility, the governor of Enugu State. How true that is, I guess the coming days are going to say, look, politics, they call it a game. They say politics is a game.
There's a prefix to that.
Oh, really?
Dirty.
Oh, it's a dirty game.
That's what they. What they say.
Well, they say it's a game, and I'm like, okay, you're playing games with the lives and destinies of people. I do not find it funny.
Yeah.
Because this game that you call a game, you determine the people who are going to be responsible for the lives and livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people, and you call it a game? No.
Certainly not.
It's not.
And people like residents of Plateau State, I mean the entire state, but particularly Basa and maybe Angwan Rukuban, don't think it's a game.
They can't call it a game.
Yesterday, only just yesterday, they came out in anger, burying yet another 11 victims of attacks allegedly carried out by armed gunmen, where 11 people died, including 2 pregnant women and a 3-year-old. That mass burial was held yesterday, and there was a lot of anguish. And I was thinking to myself, and these people, will they come out to vote in 2027? How would the voting pattern be? Would they think, the present government has failed us, therefore we will not vote for the present government? We will be voting for other political parties, or will we not even be, maybe we won't be voting at all because we're not happy and our people are dying. Anguish, yeah.
Once we interviewed a former DSS chief, and he was telling us, his name skipped me now, I hope I remember it. He was telling us that, you know, this whole insecurity thing, particularly in Plateau State. Okay, so I was asking, is there, I mean, we have heard it said, attributed to late head of state Abacha. I was saying, where he said that if a particular kind of insecurity subsists for more than 24, is it 48 hours, that the state, that's the government, knows about it or has a hand in it. So I put the question to him, is that true? That is Dennis Amakri. I said, is that true? He said, you know, he said, well, ideally, there isn't anything that should happen in any state when the governor is not aware. And I said, look, we have security meetings, we have security briefings and all of those things, and then we still have all of these things happening without, you know, this thing, without lead. So yeah. It's a bit troublesome. It's a bit troubling. So, but then, match that with something that the president said, that, and I think he said it at one of those there, you know, for maybe not an official function, but the president was there. And the camera was on him and he said, they want to use insecurity to chase me away, something like that. And he brought to mind what we heard, you know, that the whole idea of insecurity orchestrated in the build-up to the 2015 election was with the intention of removing the president of the day. And all of this is coming to the fore because more than once, governors, even the president of the day at some point, not President Tinubu, some previous presidents have said, we know the people behind these things. In fact, a particular president, I think what President Jonathan said, these terrorists have infiltrated his government. And that governors continue to tell us, we know who these people are. They live among us. And I'm still wondering, so how come we don't just pick them up? And you're not telling me you need political will. Really? Political will? Do you need political will to eat? Do you need political will to go to the loo, to ease yourself? No. Do you need political will? So why do you need political will to protect people? Do I need political will to pay my children's school fees? Does the school need a political will? Maybe I'm sounding simplistic, but really, it is when we complicate these things, it's unnecessary. How do we expect the people of Plateau State to trust any government?
Exactly.
How do we expect the chairman of the local government, the Bassa local government you call it, how do we expect the people of the Bassa local government to look to their chairman, local government chairman, as being capable of, or even their governor?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Okay, I don't know. It's tiring. It's troubling. My fear is that, may God help us so we don't become numb to such pathetic, inexplicable, despicable, intolerable deaths that we put our people through all over the place. In the name of what? Politics? Governance? We need to, I don't know, look, you know what, I'm done. So what are we talking about this morning?
Right. Oh, wow. All right. So we're still focused on politics, everyone. I mean, that is no surprise because of the elections that are coming next year. And they're just months away.
And the transfer window.
And the transfer window, which
officially they call it defections.
Yes. So we're still focusing on the wave of defections from one political party to another, as everybody is trying to realign ahead of the polls just to give themselves, you know, a surer footing, they say.
Housing for every Nigerian. I've heard this since like a long time. Housing for all by year 2000. This was one of the big things that was said during the Babangida era. Well, year 2000 he passed in 26 years ago. Here we are.
Moving goods from factory to continental markets.
You want to listen to this one because there is something an industrialist in Nigeria said that it's not very, very palatable, and he's not the only one that has said it. Then we talked about trauma the past few weeks. So here's the topic today, as you can see on your screen: maximizing trauma Really? Can any good thing come out of trauma?
Maybe.
You find out. Oh, you know?
No, I said maybe.
Okay. Or
we'll
maybe
find
not.
out, as you were saying.
All right.
And then we have the artist of the week.
Let's just say it's a human being. We'll find out the details later on. In the meantime, do yourself a favor. If you are not doing intermittent fasting, and you're not fasting this morning, grab your cup of cocoa. I had mine already. And I don't know what she's having. Or cocoa. Or cocoa. Whichever
or just
one. Plain
coffee. Or water or tea, you know.
Do yourself a favor.
Whatever you like.
We'll be right back.
So welcome back. Of course, we just, get right to it. Focus on wave of political defections. Previously, we talked about formidable opposition. Well, whether they were formidable enough is one thing for them to think that they should move to the so-called the party they call the opposition. In fact, in their tongue twisting is a tongue twisting sentence. I don't know how to say it.
The first wave of defections was to the ruling party.
Yes.
This wave of defection is from opposition party to opposition party.
And then to opposition party again, and then to opposition party.
This one,
yes,
I've
again.
never. When you hear something like there is nothing new under this one, this one is new. I've never seen this one before.
Under this one, they've changed to moon. Something new under the moon.
Oh, under sun. The moon.
Because the sun is tired. The sun is tired of harboring new things. He said, moon, please take over.
Okay, so the current wave of defections. There are a few. Let's give you a list. The NDC surge, May 2026, 17 members of the House of Reps and 3 senators defected to the newly formed NDC early May, triggered by the high-profile exits from the ADC, led by Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso. And we've also seen Victor Ume, Anambra Central, Rufai Hanga, Kano Central, and former Governor Seriake Dixon all moved to the NDC. Of course, we know who is behind the NDC. House members include Yusuf Dati, Afamogene, Thaddeus Atta, Uchenna Okonkwo. We also understand there are some regional figures. Mohammed El Rufai, son of former Governor Nasir El Rufai, left the APC for the NDC, and on and on and on. So the political dramatis personae are the NNPP, PDP, LP. They saw movements across various parties, including all of these, as politicians sought what they call litigation-free platforms. Joke cited that earlier. So here we are, and that is where we are starting our conversation this morning. So who are the people discussing with us? Well,
we have in the studio here with us, we have Principal Counsel GT Ogunye Chambers, Dr. GT Ogunye. He joins us in the studio.
You followed me. Sorry. You.
Have you missed that GT Ogunye? Apologies. I don't know where that came from. Right.
Thanks for having me.
We also have joining us virtually Dr. Unisa Zachary Yao, convener, Nigeria's Civil Society Situation Room, and also Bola Ilori, founding member, All Progressives Congress. They are yet to join us.
Well, I guess Dr. Unisa Zachary Yao may already have joined us. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning, Dr. Yao. Well, if you're muted, you may want to unmute. Let's start with you, Mr. Ogunye. This, first of all, what do you make of all this crisscrossing? I call it the transfer window. Say the transfer window is political transfer window. Joker has helped me to qualify. The political transfer window is open, but there is also a limit to that.
Yeah.
You know, according to the law, some things have to happen before a particular deadline. And here we are, and this crisscrossing haven't really changed much.
Well, it's a tragic comedy.
Oh, really?
Yes, because oftentimes we talk about politics being a noble engagement. There should be politics of principle, politics of ideology, politics of clarity, politics of platform, so that the electorate in an election is not left to wonder whether there's any difference amongst political contenders. But what we've seen over time in Nigeria is that political parties are special purpose vehicles, contrivances that are used to propel powermongers to power, regardless of manifesto, regardless of positions, and so on and so forth. I'm very sure that many, even most of the electorates, are not bothered by the manifesto of political parties. And this was, we're not just talking about politics of identity now. We're just talking about a situation where everything seems to be in a state of flux. So what matters is power. The end justifies the means. Just hop onto a platform that you think can propel you to power. So there's no fidelity to principle, there's no fidelity to ideology, there's no fidelity to decency. So that's why it is so common. It is about who is going to, how do I get to power?
But you said something now that I think we shouldn't ignore. You said the electorate is not so much concerned about manifestos. That's a bit troubling, isn't it?
It's troubling. It shouldn't be so. The days of politics of principle, I can say, are gone, where you say, oh, you pay in 4 cardinal points. And you see, you can say it. And NPN, okay, yes, Green Revolution, this one, and so on and so forth. Many electorates, even if they are punctilious, they give attention to details, they want to read between the lines, they want to really know and get politically educated, are often left, in a state of bewilderment. So they see a politician stay on a platform, demonize the other politicians, call them names, call them using vitriol and very terrible language to describe. And then the following day, they see those politicians moving to that same party and embracing those people, and they say it's a game. It's not a do or die affair. It is what can get us to a destination that matters. It's like the Christian will say, seek ye first the kingdom of God and everything will be added to it. It is power. It is power. And I've given this example just as I anchor. I am often fascinated by political history in this country. Worse and all, with all that has been said about political past. First Republic. The 1959 independence election, national election, federal election was conducted in the country to bring people to the federal parliament and elect the first government of Nigeria. And Aula wanted to be a prime minister, okay? He was committing this to prayers, he was writing this in his personal books, he was saying and repeating it to himself every day, which was used during the treason trials, that he was fixated on becoming a prime minister and was disappointed. So they produced that book and then used that as evidence that he was obsessed. That's why he wanted to stage a coup and all that. But that's a digression. So it was, regardless of that, when the results came out, and he discovered that he couldn't form a coalition government with the NCNC. As they were going to Asaba, newspapers were reporting that, oh, NCNC had gone to the north to form an alliance with the Northern People Congress. He settled down and became a leader of opposition. Even when amongst his party were saying that they should join the national government to form a broad coalition, he said, no, it is good to be in opposition. One day we'll also be in power, right? That is how it should be. And in those days, you had party stalwarts who could do anything for their party. Maybe there are other ways they were compensated, but who are not angling about how they were going to get to power. Let me give you an example. Chief Alfred Rewani. There was no action grouper that was more staunch than him. He never occupied any political office. Indeed, as written by Olo in his memoir, when he was coming to Lagos to come and campaign from Western region for the federal election in 1959, they were looking for a befitting vehicle, car, where their leader, Awolowo, would ride in Lagos triumphantly to campaign. And they look around and they said, no, Awolowo's car was not good enough. So they looked for the car of Chief Alfred Rewines. It's in his memoir. Okay? And yet, Chief Alfred Rewines, who unfortunately then died during the Abacha reign of terror, just because he remained consistent to progressive ideas and politics, never sought, at least we didn't read it so, never sought to occupy any political office. He was just happy being a staunch supporter of Chief Awolowo, being a proud action grouper, and so on and so forth. Now, fast forward, everybody wants to occupy one office or the other. And so the fixation or occupancy of political office, and it's good. It's good because it said that no power, no change. If you are not, although it's not true, because political power is not the totality of power. We all have powers at different levels, and we can effect changes, either in church, faith-based organization, in our profession, in school, and all that. You see the way teachers use their power to mold the life of students. Okay? They are changing lives and so on and so forth. So, but because of the fixation on political power and the benefits that are derived from holding and wielding that power, you see people crisscrossing political parties, and I'm not certain that it's going to be better in the future. I can predict that it's going to be worse.
It's rather unfortunate. But anyway, Mr. Ilori has since joined us. He's a founding member of the All Progressives Congress. Bola Ilori, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We're looking at the wave of political defections. Clearly, even the APC, your political party, has benefited from this. So on the one hand, some members of your party are happy that people are crossing into your party. On the other hand, they are happy to pick and deride those who are jumping from one party to the other on other political platforms that are not the APC. There are some who will call that double speak.
No, it's not double speak. It's speaking to antecedent of people who are talking. If you look at it, okay, what had been happening before now, like Barrister G.T. Ogunye said, the history before now has been enviable now, looking at what it is now. The biggest danger we are running into now is that majority of the youth, who will be eventually the leader of the society, are beginning not to see anything wrong in jumping from one place to the other. Because if you look at it now, majority of people who are moving maybe to NDC, ADC, they move to ADC, an opposition party, to another opposition party. That is not setting good precedent for the political history of Nigeria going forward. It's not just about saying double speak. Let me give you a clear example. When APC was to be formed, parties came together, party with similar background, the CPC, the ACN, to form the broad coalition that became APC. And you see the move. You can know the coloration of what we are talking about. If you now look at the new party, the ADC, particularly ADC and NDC, they are not in that mood. These are strange bedfellows coming together to say they are forming opposition. Within the opposition now, they are opposing themselves. If you have been looking at the social media of late, it has been more of ADC versus NDC. So that is the danger that our democracy is like facing, is that we lose more of ideological focus on how do we really govern. This man in ADC said that the PRO of ADC said something about Peter Obi, that you should challenge him to ask for what was the manifesto of ADC. He said he never attended any of those things. And these are critical issues for anybody who is a political actor.
But then you heard Barrister Ogunye say, as we call him, that most electorates are unfortunately ill-interested in political manifestos. It's not a good thing that they're not interested, but clearly, according to Mr. Ogunye, most electorates are not really interested in political manifestos. Do you see that as a problem on its own?
It's a serious problem.
How is so?
Because politics should be about governance, really, at the end of the day. After winning power, is that what do you want to really give to us? If the electorates are not asking, then there is a fundamental problem that whomever you elect owes nobody anything to deliver because you have not tied him to any particular thing. Let me give you the example of Ashwaju versus Buhari. When Buhari came to power, everybody who had been politically active, we know that Buhari turned against Ashwaju. But rather than abandoning APC, he went on sabbatical and lied low that, okay, my own time will come anyway. Just like Awolowo did that, okay, we could be in opposition for now. At our own time, we will also relaunch to see how we gain power. That is to show you that politics, because he believed in the idea of APC, rather than jumping ship, he could have jumped to another party. But he stayed there, nurtured the party, ensure that at his own time, he now said, Emilokan, knowing that, yes, I've paid my dues, now I want to go for this. If we don't encourage such things, there will be problems that we feel that it must be us all the time. And I think that's one of the problems ADC may be facing, you know, with people jumping from frying pan to fire.
Well, I guess that will be the ADC, as you said, is the cook, so they will have to measure the size of the heat of their kitchen. But let's go to Dr. Zachary Yao, convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Thanks for joining us this morning. From the Situation Room, what can you see about this wave of defections? Again, let me reiterate, I still call it transfer season, because after some time, those who moved from one party to the other will revert. The example of 2015, post-2015 elections, you know, is a clear example to us. Those who moved from the PDP M-bulk into the APC and called themselves the new PDP at the time, moved into the APC, got whatever it was that they wanted, and then moved back into the PDP while still in government. So defections is not new to us, and they usually happen seasonally, maybe like once every 4 years, occasionally. What are your thoughts on that?
Good morning, everybody. I think for me is that what we are seeing is that means that we actually have no political parties. And without political parties, you cannot have credible elections. And without credible elections, you cannot have democracy. So I think that the waves of the transfers, as we call them, is really an indication of a serious problem with our democracy as it is now. You need people to be identified with clear programs, clear manifesto, and the way people move today they are in one party, tomorrow they are in the next party, means that there is no adherence to any political ideology.
Dr. Yao, do you think that can be legislated? I apologize for butting in. Do you think that can be legislated? Because I remember, just as Mr. Ogunye has reminded us, in the First Republic, some things were clear. And he cited the example of Chief Awolowo, that Chief Awolowo couldn't be bothered since he could not, you know, align with a particular party to get things done. He decided to stay in opposition. That was in the First Republic. In the Second Republic, there were 5 clear political parties, and their ideologies seemed distinct. you know, progressive ideologies, capitalist ideologies, all those were clear in the Second Republic. And I don't recall seeing many, if any, defections in the Second Republic. Third Republic was similar. There were just two political parties anyway, so you were either here or you were there. And it was clear to everyone. But this Fourth Republic, it would seem like from the very beginning, there was little, if any, difference between the PDP and the other political parties at the time, or maybe we evolved away from that time into what we now have, where we just have vehicles. Any vehicle that uses any fuel, so long as it can move me, that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. Do you think it's something that can be legislated?
I don't think that we need to legislate ideology or manifestos. I think those are, they should be the ground norm for party formation. You know, so when you are establishing or organizing your political party, then you must set out what exactly will that political party project? What does it stand for? You know, I don't think it's a matter of making a legislation that the party must have this thing. I think that ideologies and ideas, you know, evolve organically from the people. I think what is happening is that over the last couple of years, we have people who do not understand politics and have taken over, largely because we have monetized our political system. You know, people who don't believe in anything other than just contesting and winning the election. You know, winning, of course, in inverted commas, because we've seen that many of the elections are not won; they are rigged. You know, and so I think what is important is that. We need to do two things. I think we need to increase political awareness among the Nigerian populace, you know, to make them understand that they should vote for people on the basis of ideas, programs, you know, and manifesto, and not on the basis of personality or inducement, as we see the vote trading and so forth. Secondly, I think that there's need for a new crop of leaders who understand politics as it is in other climes and not as it is being practiced in Nigeria. And I think that that is a work in progress. That is something that slowly would develop as people become increasingly dissatisfied with current thing. I think we must understand that democracy is not just a point that you reach. It's a work in progress. It's something that keeps on expanding and growing. And I think that we would have to do with our own mistakes and learn and unlearn and continue to perfect the way in which democracy.
Dr. Yao, just one quick thing, because just one quick thing before I yield to Joke. If we don't legislate, and we can't or shouldn't legislate ideology, as you have said, and these people move from one political party to the other simply because they must have a political platform before they can contest elections in our democracy. What if we open up the political space for independent candidature? Do you think that'll make a difference? Do you think it'll arrest this political transfers?
I think it's an important thing that we should do. We should allow for independent candidature. But mark you, in the current dispensation, even when you have an independent candidature enshrined in our constitution, we will still be seeing these transfers as they happen. The reason is simple, that our politicians, as they are today, they don't believe in hard work. They don't believe in contesting and selling themselves within the voters, you know. And so they are more interested about hijacking structures that they can easily use. So even if you allow independent candidature today, many of these people who are transferring from party A to party B will continue to do so because they don't believe in the people. I mean, they don't believe that votes determines the election. They believe that you can manipulate the system, you can use structures to, ensure that there are people who will do the footwork of rigging elections.
Oh dear.
Oh, yeah, I think
I'm sure we'll get him back.
We'll get him back. Mr. Ogunye, if I can come to you there.
For you,
right.
or intimidating others and so forth, So it is important that we have independent candidature, but so in itself will not provide so.
Okay.
Right. Let me take you from where he stopped. Do you think Nigeria is ready for independent, candidature? It's as if they don't really have any structure to lean on in that sense, and they'll just fall by the wayside.
We've always been ready for that.
Right.
But over time, the impediments woven into our electoral system have complicated matters. In the First Republic, you had small local parties, Mabolaje Party in Ibadan, and so on and so forth. But with the advent of the 1979 Constitution, when we transformed to the presidential system of government, we then started setting standards. You must have offices all over the federation. You must have all this and all that and all that. So it's not possible therefore for parties or individuals to then contest local elections, within their small space, without pretending that they are a national party, and that the military, for example, thought that will unite Nigeria better, Nigeria will become stronger, and that's why they abandoned the parliamentary system of government and they switched to the presidential system of government. Yes, independent candidacy is good, but the problem is that even if we have it, the other feature of our electoral system, of our democratic system, will stifle the possibility of that thriving. Imagine an independent candidate who wants to be the president of Nigeria. Election is coming. He has to have agents. So how is he? He has to campaign all over the country. Okay? So, and so on and so forth. So how is he going to cope? He's not going to. Even if you have it on paper, it won't work. Independent candidacy is possible in local elections, like local government election, perhaps state. But it's something that we should be thinking about and all that. But those who superintend our political process currently will not want independent candidates because that would be a kind of nuisance to them.
Right. That, well, coming from there, but here's my question. Many defectors, say that they're moving from one political party to another because they want to be in a litigation-free party, so to speak. I don't know how that's working now, but is it fair for voters to lose their representation, just because of that reason alone?
No, they're not speaking the truth. It's not as if they are looking for litigation-free party. As long as we continue to have political disputes, partisan disputes, that are justiciable, which are matters that can be litigated, politicians will continue to litigate. And more so in our climate, when the court, over time, has been taken as the turf for political supremacy. So the battle they wage within their party, they extend it to the judicial floor in order to gain supremacy. So the court will continue to be used, by politicians. I think that the reason why they are crisscrossing, is because there are three factors. First, I've stated here earlier today that what is the obsession is power. How do I get power? So what is the surest route for me to getting power? What is the surest platform I can use to get to power? So, and if that's the obsession, politicians will continue to, look to hunt for platform to use in an election. The second factor is that, in our current situation, we have the parties being bedeviled by crisis. So that even if you think that a party is rancor-free today or litigation-free, once there's a crisis, the possibility is that litigation will emerge from there. So this speaks to the issue of the necessity for internal democracy in the political party. For example, I tell you straight away, that what we've had in the electoral system recently, the new Electoral Act 2026, which hitherto we have 3 modes of nomination through direct primary, indirect primary, and consensus. What we have now seen is that consensus has now been elevated, and it is being celebrated as democratic. That consensus, is forced consensus. In this climate, it is ridiculed as Babasokwe, that yes, you have said that this is the person we are going to follow. And so everybody wittingly will then start dropping off because they cannot contend with the party leadership. That's no consensus. That's arm twisting. And this is what has been elevated. So if internally political parties are not practicing democracy, the law says that Nemo quote that no habit. You can't give what you don't have. If you don't have internal democracy in your party and everything is done by consensus, how are you going to give democracy at the
But there are 2 options in the
yes, it used to be 3.
Yes.
By amendment, they've now reduced to 2.
Yeah.
Consensus and direct primaries. And you know that direct primary is very difficult to handle.
Why?
Because that would mean that everybody will start voting. The delegate system has been removed. Okay, because you say that delegates can be bought, right?
It was the direct primaries we used in option A4 now, isn't it? We're coming to you. Yeah.
Okay, the 2 examples that we had in the run-up to the 2023, first in Lagos here.
2015.
2015. How did it pan out? They are the politicians, they know what happened in Lagos.
So let him answer. Why did you people restrict us to only 2
And then
options?
the one that came later, in 2019, where they said that they had direct primary to elect the president, the late president, as the candidate. And they said that they have how many votes? 11 million, 20 million votes. And we are wondering, where did the election, the direct primary, where did it take place?
Okay.
So I'm just giving you 2 examples.
Okay, well, let him respond.
See, some of these things is neither here nor there. Looking at the National Assembly, why they had to drop off the issue of indirect primary, which is the delegate election, is that every election season, I remember that in 2015, I wrote a Facebook post that the election has been dollarized. Atiku was contesting against Buhari in Lagos here at Onikan, and it was dollaring. So if you don't have the dollar, you can't survive the process. And I think that's why the National Assembly has to say, okay, let's do away with this. Let there be consensus or direct primaries. And for me,
sorry, I'm trespassing. Just a quick riposte so that you take it along.
Yeah.
If politicians bribe the larger electorate in general elections,
yes,
by 5,500 Diboko and all that, what made you think that, if you have a direct primary as a preference,
yes,
so that you eliminate the so-called delegate system that is dollarized,
yes,
they still will not exercise the might.
Then it means
and then use their pocket to bribe those direct electors.
Then it means that consensus becomes democratic. If that, using your own logic to go about it, it means that consensus is good. What is consensus? Consensus is where everybody agree. Parties, any party, even in the world, in America anywhere, have soul of the party. We even call them, what they call them in America is that you have the super party voters, the super delegates that vote. So party have soul. The soul of the party can sit down, look at what are the issues here, not just based on money. And you can't take the tradition of the people from whatever you are doing. Democracy is not hanging in the air. It's part of the tradition of the Awolowos, of everybody, that this tendency, CPC, ACN, that formed APC, followed before even this set. Let me go to what I feel becomes very important. It's not whether direct, indirect is bad or not bad. It's that the ideology is missing. I remember when we were in school, because that's where the issue starts, and that's why I'm afraid more for what will happen in the future than what is happening now. When we were in school, Barrister Jixi Okoye happens to be our own senior generation. They will come to us, teach us what is ideology. We don't know. We are from our different houses. So they will come, teach us. Gani, Falana, all of them will come and teach us, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do, this is what you should do, this is what you should not do. Till today, that still guide whatever we do. As far back as it was then, we still cannot lose consciousness of those training. Are those training happening now? What we see now, which for me is the biggest danger than what we are discussing, because whatever we discuss now will have only minimal impact for now. But it will degenerate if there is no conscious effort by maybe the CSO now, because the older generation are getting tired. Baba, I don't know when last year I had gone to school to talk to people like they spoke to us. Me, myself, have I even gone to school to talk to anybody? So it's becoming a generational problem that people see that they can abuse anybody. They feel that that is how to be good now, is the amount of abuse you can dish out to people. That is how to trend. It's beyond trendy. This is about life matters. And for me, I think that awareness, like the situation room person said, becomes very, very key and critical on the side of the media, on the side of CSO, on the side of the political class too.
We'll still go back to him, but
yeah, we'll go back to him, and even we still need to get back to our guest online. But really, I take you up on that, because even this consensus issue candidacy is generating a lot of issues within the APC, and a lot of people, some of the candidates, are rejecting it. Case in point, one of the aspirants, I beg your pardon, in Gombe State, Pantani, is challenging this, saying that he's challenging the emergence of consensus candidates, saying he needs written consent, which he hasn't given. And there are some others. So how
that is to tell you that it's democratic.
Yes.
Whoever feels aggrieved will still have access to buying the party form to go and contest. It's not as if under consensus you are forbidden from contesting. If you are so sure of yourself and convinced that you can win, you are still allowed. It will have been autocratic, assuming that once a consensus had been declared, nobody can buy the form again. No. Where people feel convinced enough that they have the wherewithal to run the election, the party is not denying them buying the expression of interest form. So they still buy it, they still go and run the primaries. Whether they will now win or lose is a different ballgame. Because politics really is about building structure, and that's the danger of all these nomadic politicians, that they don't build what can last and what can carry them on. And you find it difficult. The danger in what they are doing is this, is that as they are nomadic politicians, you can't hold them to anything.
Right.
Let me give you very, very clear instance of what happened in Lagos. In Lagos, sorry, sir, in Lagos, 2023 election, they voted a Labour Party, voted somebody and became House of Rep member in Lagos. Nobody asked question. Now, when that one did the empowerment, they now saw that they made a mistake. Because the entire list, it's from a particular tribe, the entire list, short of 2, was from that tribe, which does not reflect the opinion of Lagosians in Oshodi. It's becoming an issue. So when you, out of excitement, support nomadic, unaccountable politician, you also face nomadic reality. That your area also become collateral damage.
Please excuse me. Again, I go again. That's fantastic, fine.
Yeah.
But staying with Lagos State.
Yes.
Kadri Hamzat.
Yes.
Consensus candidate.
Yes.
GAC said, "Oh, he's our man." Then President Tinubu also endorsed him.
Yes.
Who is going to buy?
Oh, there are 2 people who have come out.
Yes, 2 people. But someone like Jandor has stepped. He first said he collected nomination. Then he's stepping down.
There's another guy from Badai.
SMA good or something.
What I'm saying is, whoever buys nomination form after that is probably just wasting their money.
No,
I'm saying that because
it's just a democracy.
It's a democracy. But what chance does that person have?
Okay, well, Dr. Yao, let's come to you on this. I'm sure you are. Even yourself, you are
watching. There's a point that you raised about legislating ideology.
Okay, just 1 second there, Dr. Yao.
About legislating ideology. I agree with him that, you know, the Constitution Section 40 talks about the right to freedom of association and all that. You can belong to a political party of your own choice. And
even if you are nomadic.
You know, that's the constitutional right. But what the Constitution has done, at least in Section 68, subsection 1, paragraph G, and 109, subsection 1, paragraph G, regarding the House of Assembly of a state and the National Assembly, is to make it difficult for politicians who are members of the legislature to cross-carpet.
Yes.
Cross-carpeting. But that provision does not extend to those who are in the executive. So you see governors switching political parties and all that. So without consequences, right? For members of the legislature, if they defect without their party, you know, splitting down the middle at the national level and then becoming difficult for it to manage, as decided by the Supreme Court in the case of Abegunde and Ondo State House of Assembly, then the consequence is that the
vacate their seats.
But even at that, that still was problematic in Rivers State. Why? Because by subsection 2 of section 68, the speaker shall be the person to enforce. Now, if the speaker similarly defected, how is he going to enforce something against himself?
All right,
so the point I'm making is that you can bring the best legislation to town.
It depends on the execution.
We have to change our values and all that. And that's why I agree with you when he was talking about training and, you know, conscientizing.
All right, Dr. Yao, you know, I don't know which part of this, the conversation we've had so far you want to respond to, but let me take one. One of the reasons that's been given for defections is, okay, there's uproar in our party, there's unsettlement here and there, the court is ordering stuff. On the one hand, there are those who say the problem with the PDP is still, you know, being contested in courts, because right now, in fact, somebody said, going by the ruling of the court on the situation with the PDP has no governing authority right now. The ADC is also embroiled in quite a number of stuff, and there are those who believe that even the NDC is a bit shaky because it was a party registered by the order of courts. So is the judiciary a victim in all of these, or because we hear the judiciary has ruled, look, internal party affairs are internal party affairs, but guess what? Parties, internal party operators take their case to the court. What happens? Does the court throw them out? I don't know, how do you place the judiciary in all of these?
Well, let me say that there are two different dynamics that defines what is happening at the moment. The first, which is much simpler to handle, is that there is no internal democracy in our political parties, you know. And once you have no internal democracy, then it's about might, it's about who is stronger, you know. And so you will continue to have people who have been shunted out because of lack of internal democracy, so they will be seeking for alternative pitch to ride. The second dynamic is the way in which the judiciary, and I think that when we say judiciary, we are really being very diplomatic. I think that the way in which Gov't has used the judiciary, and I think that somewhere somebody is using the judiciary to create problems for political parties that are already having their own problems, you know. So you have these two problems that are defining the thing. And I think that Nigerians, we need to say enough is enough. That the judiciary has to be kept in where it should be. You know, it shouldn't be overreaching itself. You know, it's very clear that the law says that internal party matters should be handled internally by the parties. You know, the same judiciary that had made that interpretation is throwing away that interpretation and then making new interpretations for matters that have been brought to it, or matters that I could easily have dismissed them and say, go back, it is your own internal matters, you know. So I think that Nigerians will need to wake up and need to really focus attention on what the judiciary is doing. We have seen from 2023 how elections are won not by votes, but by judicial pronouncement. And I think that is dangerous, you know, because it means that the agency of citizens, of this capacity and ability to elect government of this own choices, you know, has been subverted, you know, when election will be won by the pronouncement of the judiciary, you know. So it has done that damage to us, and now it is damaging our political parties that are already formed, you know. And so I think that we really have to put back the heat on the judiciary, and whoever is using the judiciary to subvert political parties in this country.
Dr. Yao, isn't that so? Well, I mean, you have a point. The court has said, and now it will seem like if the court that said don't bring your internal affairs to the courts is still entertaining in party internal affairs, shouldn't we be asking if the political parties, the politicians within the political parties know this to be the ruling opposition of the court, why then take their cases to the court? Doesn't this speak to the culture, maybe our political culture or political maturity of the people that are, I don't know, what do you think is at play there? Because if they didn't take the case to court, the judiciary would not be compelled to hear them and then make a pronouncement.
You see, that's the point I made about the first challenge that we have. You have people who don't believe in democracy, people who don't believe in internal structures and internal processes of handling their grievances within these own political parties. You know, you have people who have no political culture about contests, about debates, about consensus building, not the sort of consensus that have been discussed much earlier, you know, but about reaching consensus on the basis of debate, about rationality of argument, and about how you are able to convince your opponent to understand and to view things from the perspective of your argument, you know. So that deficiency in our political culture and in our political parties is an important impediment to the growth and stabilization of political parties. It is because they don't believe in those structures, they don't believe in those principles. So any small disagreement, they will run to the court, even when they know that the court itself is doing what it shouldn't do. You know, so I think that we need to really get people, particular politicians, understand that democracy within these own structures, you know, you can't have democracy without democrats. And I think that is the key challenge in this country, that the people in political parties are people who don't believe, they don't believe in any sense about democracy. You know, you leave them, allow them, they will run their parties undemocratically, and that's what we've been seeing. Money bags have taken over, people who have gatekeeping, you know, have taken over, and we have political parties that have no members, you know. In those areas that our colleague has spoken with.
All right, well, you know, Dr. Yao.
Members
yeah.
Raise, pay money, they make contributions, they finance candidates.
Okay. All right. Let's begin to coast home.
Yeah.
Mr. Ogunye, the judiciary is painfully at the end of all of these. Parties will take their cases to court.
Yeah.
Both inter-party and intra-party issues are taken to court. And the court is compelled to make a ruling for or against. And when they come out, the winner says it's a great day for democracy. The loser says it's a sad day for democracy in Nigeria. I really don't know what you make of that.
You know, the ideal thing is not to get the judiciary to be embroiled in partisan disputes. disputes of political parties. And I think that the new amendments and the pronouncements of the courts are very clear that internal affairs of political parties are not justiciable, meaning that they should not be taken to court. However, if while you're claiming that you are conducting your internal affair, you breach the statute, you breach the law, the court will intervene. For example, if you say you are in your domestic realm, in your own house, as a head of a family, your children can ask you to give them provisioning, and you say, no, you are not going to do that, and all sorts of things. You can make a promise that, if you pass your exam, I will give you a car, and then you fail to do that, and that's not justiciable. But if you violate your daughter, if you, use domestic violence to violate your wife, that will be justiciable. You'll be dragged to court. You can't say that that's not justiciable in that regard. And as for the role of the judiciary, it's a thankless job. Because they will go there. Look, the last election we conducted in this country, people went to court to say, annul the election, and then let's conduct a fresh election. That's his entire thing. The person never said that he won. And of late, the person has been going around television houses saying that he won that election. Basic honesty. Okay? And if you look at that election, regardless of what maybe we have been saying and all that, go and study the 1979 election. MPP, UPN, NPN, where they had votes. Okay? Indeed, MPP then won Plateau State with Solomon La. Because of the Christian presence and all that. That was how the election of 2023 largely revealed. Okay? But people then came out and said, I won, you won, and then they submitted it to the judiciary. So, the mantra is that let justice be done, even though the heaven falls. So, the judiciary is not going to say, go away, we are not going to render, they will render a judgment, even if it is difficult. And so they rendered a judgment in 1979 and said 12 2/3 is equal to 13. Nigeria didn't collapse on that occasion. So I think that we can, there's a growing cliche in town. Judges are the one determining the outcome of it. What do you want them to do? Politicians will not accept defeat. And some of them, in fact, say that they have to litigate. They know they didn't win the election because they have to continue to keep their supporters under leash so that they will not go elsewhere. So sustain them on the false hope that they win, they are retrieving their mandate. They do all sorts of things. And so now, you know me, I clobber judiciary very much. But you see, in the circumstances, what do you want judges to do?
They continue to judge. Mr. Ilori, closing moments now to you. And this would be perhaps what you want to say to it. Speak as a politician, not as a member of any specific political party. It's difficult, but you're going to have to do it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, sentiments will always play.
Sure.
Now, there are no sentiments at the polls. The voter card is not sentimental.
Yeah, yes.
The governance is not, hunger is not sentimental, and all those things. But sentiments usually play. He's just give an example now that in 1979, the Solomon La victory was largely sentimental, religious sentiments. So how do we appease those sentiments or prioritize the core issues of governance over those sentiments? It's from my village, it's from my clan, it's from my region, it's from my ethnicity, and those things, over and above the real issues of hunger, poverty, unemployment, education that have no sentiments whatsoever.
It still boils down to the political party and the ideology of that party. What I would advise is that people should avoid nomadic people because you can't track them to anything. We must focus on the track. Nigeria has history of issues. Before I was born, I remember there was a song that they were playing. So before I was born. So it means that Nigeria had this issue of poverty, issue of hunger before now. It has been an ongoing concern. If that song was played before I was born, it's still now present. But now, the government that will provide what is needed to tackle it on the long run is not going to achieve that in the short run. It's not going to happen because you cannot possibly rectify what has been happening, and I'm over 50 now, so what has been happening more than 50 years ago, for somebody to address it in 4 years is impossible. The reforms are on. Let's focus on what is being done and hope for a better future, giving the opportunity for people to sustain the reform that has started yielding food. They fought for student loan for years. We have it now.
Right.
I was hoping that you would not go personal.
No, it's not personal. It's just
I've heard you.
Well, we must thank you, Bola Ilori, founding member, All Progressives Congress. Thank you so much for giving us those closing comments. GT Ogunye, Principal Counsel, GT Ogunye Chambers, he was here with us. Still here with us in the studios. Thank you so much. And who joined us virtually, Dr. Yunusa Zakari Yao, convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Thank you again for your time and for those wonderful comments on the program.
So when we return, there's something I've been hearing since the 80s. Maybe Mr. Ilori too will also refer.
From the over 50 years ago.
Housing for all by year 2000. Then it moved to housing for all by year 2010 and then Vision 2020. Now we're in 2026. Housing for all by when? Find out when we return. Thank you so much for staying with us. The National Housing Data Technical Committee recently pegged the national deficit at 14.9 million housing units as of January this year. They focused on structural inadequacy rather than just total missing homes. To close this gap within a decade, stakeholders estimate Nigeria needs to build at least 550,000 homes annually. It has been said that addressing the shortfall requires an estimated 21 trillion naira, while average house prices in major cities now sit around 320 million for one, with the cheapest entry-level options around 8 million. I don't even know where to begin, but we have this morning with us the Executive Director of Estate Services at the Federal Housing Authority, Ezekiel Nyaitok. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Which one of them did you meet when you were growing up?
I was going to say.
Housing for all by year 2000, housing for all by year 2010, housing for all by year 2020. Which one of them do you remember?
I think I remember a little more than you have said so far, but the most popular was housing for all by the year 2000. And of course, 2000 came and passed like any other thing, and nothing happened, and all that. I think that's what everybody knows, but I'm sure what they want to hear now is to what extent have we done anything about it for where we are today?
Well, perhaps that's a good place for us to begin the conversation, Mr. Nyaitok. Let's go a bit historical. I know we don't have much time, but let's go a bit historical. As far back as I can remember, I know Nigeria has been having national development plans for even before independence. And I'm almost certain that every one of those development plans included one housing program or the other. Even as at, is it 2022, after the passing, of the easing out of the COVID-19 pressures that we had, the government came up with some kind of economic sustainability programs at the time, and it also included some housing initiatives. From where you sit, and now that you are in a position to know, what are those things that, beyond the data and all of those things, what are those things that you would say are the real issues confronting provision of houses by Nigerians for Nigerians, or by government for Nigerians?
Okay, at the risk of being misunderstood, I'm going to talk from two perspectives. The first is that I am an employee, I'm an appointee of Mr. President, so I'm expected to talk about this government, which I will to a great extent. But at the same time, I'm a Nigerian whose passion and commitment is first and foremost to this country called Nigeria. So I'm going to talk almost as an advocate as well. One of the biggest problems that housing has is that of advocacy. And people don't realize that government operates by what we call lines of least resistance. There is a lot of problem with respect to, let me come to current times where we are today. We have a lot of problems with respect to security or the lack of it. We're having a lot of problems with power. We have a lot of problems with healthcare, with education. So most of the time when we hear people talk, they say we need problem is power, we have problem with security, we have problem with education and healthcare. Hardly do we bring housing into the fold of the major challenges that we have. As a result, past governments seem to, like I said, attack lines of least resistance. Where there's a lot of pressure, they seem to talk about it. But I think it's one of the biggest problems that we've made, where I give this administration a lot of credit for, because over the years, I've shouted myself hoarse for us to take good care of housing to solve a lot of our problems. I'll just give you two little issues. Number one, productivity. Without a man who sleeps well at night, when he comes to your office, he will probably use the office as a time to have where the place is cool and he just wants to sleep because through the night he didn't sleep. The next thing is psychological. Housing brings about the dignity of a man who does not have a roof over his head or to take care of his family. He can't think well. Psychologically, he's devastated. It comes from productivity will always be low. Third, in terms of health, except you have a decent environment, certain basic health issues will continue to occur. Malaria that is so prevalent. By the time you have proper environment where mosquitoes don't breed, you almost eliminate malaria. Another thing is something very important is that you'll be shocked that over 60% of your salary goes into housing. People don't really take time to think and do this analysis. The most important, if I may even call it that because they are also important, is the fact that housing is the one area where if you invest in it, it impacts the economy, the local economy directly. And it is one of the biggest creators of jobs. So you can't talk of power without housing. You can't talk of security without housing. You can't talk of healthcare or education without housing. That's why at the base of Maslow's pyramid of human needs is food, clothing, and shelter, which is housing. And then in the Constitution, it's clearly stated that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. You can't talk of welfare except you start with the fundamental, the basic, which is housing. Now, when you put all this together, you discover that government has so much to do, so little resources, so they deploy their resources where there's highest amount of noise. So the biggest problem of housing is that it has not been prioritized in spite of how much it brings into governance, how much it brings into employment, how much it brings into, the basics, the fundamentals of life. The local economy stimulation, road construction, building of any infrastructure, nothing impacts local economy like housing. If you build an estate where you deploy about 5 billion in, say, Uyo, a minimum of 4.8 billion will go into the local economy. You don't want to think, I say this as somebody who's done probably one of the biggest projects in this country that had that scale. I did the Shelter Africa project. We had just about 400 houses, but we had about 700 contractors, employed over 10,000 people, and it is documented that the insecurity reduced to almost zero because the young people were getting money every day. They're working from morning till night. At night, they are so tired. They go to sleep, getting ready for the next day. So when government starts to prioritize housing, they solve a lot of their problems.
Right, and those, I mean, I'm seeing the problems that you're talking about being, you know, the problems of, you know, employment, you know, of local people to take part in some of, you know, the building or the construction of some of these houses. But, you know, you started earlier by saying that, you know, if a man or a family have, you know, a roof over their head, you know, it protects their children, protect the wives and the husband and all that, and, you know, they have less to think about. But when you think of it, you know, it's one thing to be able to get a house as shelter. Is another thing for it to be affordable. Now, a lot of people are desire to have homes, you know, to build or to buy. It's one thing to buy land if you want to, you know, buy for yourself. Even if you engage in the government schemes where maybe they give land for you to build or they build for you to buy, and then you pay over a time, it's still a lot of money to be paid. And a lot of people still cannot afford this because there's so many other things to do. There's school fees to pay, there's petrol to buy for your cars if you have a car, there's transport if you don't have a car. So you now have to start prioritizing what you're going to pay for, and then the housing is just a pipe dream at the end of the day.
Okay, I'll thank you. Very, very correct. I'll rush this as much. If we had a 2-hour program, we wouldn't be able to exhaust it, but I'll rush it as much as possible. The very first thing is what I tried to lay, which is intervention of government. Government will not intervene in areas a lot of times where there isn't maximum pressure from the people. As a matter of fact, in the housing policy, where I was privileged to be the vice chairman that we had after about 22 years, it said that the noise of the people woke up government is there in the housing policy. So because government has so much to do and so little resources, it is where there is maximum attention. For instance, if I want to contest election and I want to campaign, how many of the people that are talking of housing? They will tell you we'll fix power, we'll provide employment, because they think these are the things that people want to hear. But one of the biggest problems of man is housing. And like you said, they don't have the resources. There are ways that housing can become more affordable. How do you do it? Number one is the policies of government. You know, there's so much little details that people don't know. Having worked with or working with Federal Housing Authority, there's a difference between selling land and allocating land. Federal Housing Authority does not sell land. We allocate land. But I'll tell you this, a practical example. If I were to allocate a plot of land to you in, say, Gwarimpa, you will not pay more than 10 to 15 million for 1,000 square meters of land. You won't. But that same plot of land that goes for 10 to 15 million, sold in the market, everybody knows it goes for over 150 to 180 million. Now, a policy could come that says, number one, if we allocate this land to you, you must develop it in not more than 3 years, and you must fully develop it within 5 years. Now, that could be there, but there's a second part. The second part will say, you cannot sell this land for the next 10 years. What that means is that anybody who buys this land from you is not going to have the papers done until minimum of 10 years. What does that allow? It makes sure that land is allocated to people who have need of the land to build on the land and not to speculators. That means that a senator that already has a house in Guaripa does not necessarily want to have another unless he's going to build it. He can build it and rent it out. He can build it to sell, but he's got to be the one to develop it. Now, the cost is going to be less because his cost of land is just about 10, 15 million. But when that land is sold to another developer who is buying for 150 million, that's already base cost that he's got to impute. And as a result, the delivery cost is going to plus over 100 million, whether it's shared between the number of units that get in there. But the important thing is that how do we get to a point where land is allocated strictly to those who have need to either build and live or build and do business with it? Now, that's a very important area that I think that government will have to look into. Now, the current government has attacked some other aspects. The second thing I want to tell you about affordability is you don't buy a house the way you buy a car. You don't go pick and then pay and move, which is what people are doing. And at worst, they will tell you pay within 30, maybe 3 months or 6 months, or if you are very lucky, they can give you 2 years window. That is not the way housing is done. Can we have a policy where we come and energize, we kind of recapitalize like the Federal Mortgage Bank, bring in a 500 billion, and then now create, I can give you a very simple scale where any state you go, any estate you build, you'll have a minimum of 500 workers that can have that affordability to buy a house. But the Federal Mortgage Bank does not have that latitude as much as they are trying because it's not properly recapitalized. And where you do not have mortgages, people are doing, cash and carry. And that never works in housing delivery. Secondly, there is the issue of...
Keep going, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Mr. Yeto.
I can't hear you again.
Okay, just keep going.
Okay, fine. Now, apart from the issue of affordability, you come into job creation. The housing is being stifled. I am in the Federal Housing Authority, and we are building estates in several states. Now, you cannot do procurement where you must kind of put in a minimum of 2 to 3 million for you to satisfy those conditions, and then come and be given one house to build where your profit margin is going to be, say, 1 million. Now, that procurement process has tied the hands of a lot of agencies that would want to build houses. If you are building a bungalow, everybody knows you don't need these big construction companies to build a bungalow for you. But you must go through the procurement process. So can government look into that issue in mass delivery of housing in a way that when you go up 2, 3, 4 floors, you can go on the big contractors, but you can stimulate the local economy by building 200 housing units in Akwa Ibom State by 200 contractors, where one contractor takes one house and then he's able to bring his own people. So all the 200 houses are going on at the same time by 200 contractors, employing so many people. But those contractors cannot have those one houses because for you to qualify on a procurement process, you need to have this and that and that. And for you to have all those things, you must have spent nothing less than 2-3 million. And you can't do that to now come and get a job of 20 million. It can't work. So government may need to look into that procurement process with respect to housing delivery if they can think outside the box. The other thing that is being done by this administration, which is fantastic, is that, you have delivery of housing by government. You have delivery of government housing by not institutions now, by like REDAN, Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, by companies. Then you have delivery of housing by individuals. Really, delivery of housing by individuals is what is prevalent, and it shouldn't be so. You should be able to have these people, because very few people want to live in their father's house. Most people want to have where they can live. But now this government is able to, through Federal Housing Authority, have a kind of working relationship, which has not existed before, with the state. So there's a partnership. The Federal Housing Authority, for instance, led by Honorable Oyetunde Ojo, we've been able to go to about 30 states as at now, creating partnership, creating synergy with the state government. We sit with them. They bring some form of subsidy by giving land free, and then we now are looking at other agencies that can intervene and bring other forms of subsidy so that social housing being subsidized housing. I'll just give you a little module that will help us. If I have a contractor to build this house for me and the cost of construction is 20 million, I am going to add about 30 to 40, 45%, depending on the location, on what we call infrastructure costs, because Federal Housing Authority will never build houses where we don't have full infrastructure. Okay, if you take maybe about 20, 25% or 30%, that house of 20 million is going to have additional 10 million of infrastructure added. It takes it to 30 million. After that, you are now going to have cost of funds, because we are not funded by government. Federal Housing Authority is not on budget, and I'm happy we are not on budget. So you're going to put cost of funds, and then it's going to take it maybe to about 35 million. You're now going to put cost of land. If it's not subsidized, that could take it to 40 million. You now say, let's have 10, 15% profit margin. It goes to about 45 million. So cost of construction, 20 million. Delivery cost, 45 million. So what is now happening is that we are now bringing those down by governments giving free land. That takes about 3 to 5 million. And now we are also interfacing with the government to see how they can knock off infrastructure. That will bring it down to about 30 million. And then we now bring down our... So bottom line is that this government is looking at being able to deliver a house of 20 million base cost at not more than 30 million as much as possible. If there is this cooperation, government policy can say, South-South Development Commission, take infrastructure in this estate, so that you can knock off that extra.
But
NDDC,
Mr. Nyaitok,
and all these different organizations, FEMA.
Yeah, my apologies. All of that is taken and all of that is given, and I hope you can hear me now. Now, there is something you mentioned about mortgage. As far back as I can remember, I think as far back as I can remember, there is this government initiative called the Federal Mortgage Bank. I don't know if it is something that you think Nigerians should be encouraged to explore, because you know very well, Mr. Nyaitok, when it comes to government, the cynicism of people is always alerting. So people are unsure, people are uncertain. Generally, the trust level is very, very low. Now, so on the one hand, there is that provision by government. On the other hand is the distrust, if I can, put it that way, of whatever it is that is government. Do you think a partnership with the private sector might also help? That organizations that have, fairly good pay packages for their teams, rather than they forming cooperatives in their organizations, maybe if there is some kind of soft landing, some kind of provision for private sector operators, like Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, and the rest of them like that. Maybe that can also be an avenue through which the Federal Housing Authority can perform its function. The Federal Mortgage Bank on one hand, and then this engagement with private sector, aside from your engagement with states. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Again, I give credit to this government, because probably for the first time, there's a very proper handshake between Federal Housing Authority and Federal Mortgage Bank. These are the only two agencies of government that are with Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. So right now, there's a good handshake between the two bodies, which is very, very good. Secondly, I happen to be in charge of, I'm the Executive Director, Estate Services. So marketing is directly under my office. And exactly what you have said, these organizations are coming to my office, we are interfacing with them. We are networking with the Federal Mortgage Bank to see to what extent they could have, this National Housing Fund, once you're a contributor to it, to see to what extent they can give us, off-takers, a kind of off-take guarantee on the basis of which we can now develop, since we are not funded by government at all in any way, except a time comes when there is a policy of government that says, look, I want to vote about 50 billion every year into housing for the young people and the government workers. Federal Housing Authority, give us a template, set up an SPV for you to deliver this so that there's incremental, flow of houses into. I think the current government is also thinking along that line. But the bottom line is that when you have so many of them, it depends on the current capacity of Federal Mortgage Bank. As of today, Federal Mortgage Bank is completely transparent, completely. There was a time that it was very opaque. They were taking your money. You didn't understand where the money was going to, what was happening. But today, you have your account, given to you on a regular basis. So there's faith being restored in Federal Mortgage Bank, and a lot of people are going back. But then, think of this. All they take from workers is 2.5%. 2.5%. That means if you're earning 100,000, all they are taking from you is 2,500 naira, 2,500 naira. Extrapolate that to about 100,000 workers, it comes to nothing. But when they give you a facility, they can now start to draw down about 30%. So what do? Give Federal Mortgage Bank that latitude, that recapitalization, so that they have a lot of money that they can now take on a lot of people. Then they will now be not taking 30% and 2.5% again, but 30%. That is where we are going to have a boom of mortgage, facilities in Nigeria. As of today, Federal Mortgage Bank, I happen to know very well the management, the MD is a brother and a friend, and I know the discussions we are having on a daily basis, the kind of interactions, but they need that muscle of government. Government does not have all the money, but we can start to think outside the box. I look forward to a time we can sit down with the Minister of Housing, sorry, not Minister of Housing, because the great guy coming, the former person, I can tell you, a great guy, the guy coming also, fantastic person, the PAMSEC, they are all very zealous. They are not like the people in the past where they are just like sitting down and wondering. Today, people are thinking outside the box. Just some days back, probably 2-3 days, I sat with the Permanent Secretary, Federal Minister of Housing, and we spent about 2 hours. All we were doing was just brainstorming what can be done, where can it come from, and all those things. I think that there's a lot going on within this administration that is prioritizing housing. And I think the foundation that has been laid, a lot of times in housing, you don't like, housing is not like groundnut. It's more like coconut.
Right.
Groundnut you plug, and the next few months you are reaping. But in housing, it's like coconut.
Yes,
It takes a lot of time before it starts to yield.
Yes, I get you. And well, I'm praying that all your brainstorming sessions and endless hours of meetings will pay off, especially because I wanted to reiterate a specific issue. What specific reforms in the FHA is the FHA pushing to make entry-level home ownership accessible to the middle and low-income classes, especially, you just mentioned it, mortgage percentages by primary mortgage banks, which are quite high. Again, affordability.
Fantastic. First, we say that it's not. Let me leak a little secret. I'm in charge of the estates. In 55 years of Federal Housing Authority, they've done less than 50 estates, about 50 estates, which means less than 1 estate per year on the average over the past 50 years. And that's unacceptable by any standard. Now, in the past 2 years that we've come in this administration, we have gotten prime land in over 20, in about 30 states, 30 in 2 years. Second, we've done groundbreaking in Akwa Ibom State, we've done it in Kaduna State, we've done it in Abia State. And before you can get to that level of doing groundbreaking, it means you've gone through all the processes of procurement of the land and all it needs to be able to have a title. It takes a while, but we're able to fast forward because we went to each state and sat with them. And then apart from that, we have actually gone through the procurement process, which is a very frustrating process, I would say. And it's not about this administration, it's general with respect to housing. We need to have that conversation of procurement process. It can take you 1 year to go through it, but everybody's like, where are the houses, where are the houses? You just can't go and build. You must go through processes of getting the contractors to build and everything. So what they've done in this administration is, one, let's go on what you call social housing, which is subsidized housing. All the states have given us the lands free. I can tell you that authoritatively. That knocks off costs from it. Secondly, they have gone ahead to pay the compensation, and even like Abia done the clearing for us, and some of them are saying, can you give us a design? Let us see how we can look at the infrastructure. Each of those is reducing the cost. Each of them is reducing the cost. And I will not stand here to tell you it is this amount. But what I'm telling you is that a house of 20 million would sell for about 45 million because of what I've told you. But when you're able to net off infrastructure, net off cost of land, net off compensation, you are coming down to the 30s.
Okay.
And we are now looking for how we can even go below the 30s.
You know,
which is going to be like knocking off about 50%. You know, which is what we are doing in Federal Housing Authority as at today.
I'm really looking forward to a time, Mr. Nyaitok, where, I mean, these things will not just be talk. Maybe it's a conversation we're definitely still going to have, because people want to know that, one, these things are working, and secondly, you talked about the partnership with the FHA and the Federal Mortgage Bank. We're hoping that in no distant future we'll be able to see some of these things and have another conversation with you about how all of this is working in the interest of Nigerians. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and thanks for everything that you do. Ezekiel Nyaitok is Executive Director
Always a delight. Thank you.
Estate Services at the Federal Housing Authority. Sincere appreciation once again.
Welcome back. Now we're talking business, Ayo.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of it.
Recently, well, some 2-3 years back, first of all, we've been talking about the Africa Free Trade Agreement for a very long time. And while he was still president of the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina said it was costlier to move goods from Nigeria to some African countries nearby than it is to move those same goods from Spain or from Europe to Nigeria or out.
Yeah.
And that was a little troubling. I thought that was all we were going to hear of it. Until Alhaji Dangote also said the same thing recently. And guess what? It was an international news platform that published it. So that says that that fact is already an international fact. Yeah. And I think that is one of the, it's troubling. If we can't trade among ourselves as Africans, then. And
we, you know, we're always talking about Africa is this and Africa is that. There's always talk of African leaders come together, you know, help each other, lift each other up. There's always talk when, you know, when you have AU meetings where you have African leaders say we live to looking words, help each other. So what's going on?
Well, I guess Prof will be able to tell us this morning because I have no idea.
All right, so Professor Banji Oyelaron Oyeyinka, Professor in Economics, Innovation and Technology Management in Developing Countries, also former Senior Special Advisor on Industrialization to the President of the African Development Bank. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure to join you this morning.
Right. Hopefully you can help us unravel this seeming problem of moving goods from factory to continental markets, which seems to be a problem we've been trying to solve. We've not been able to do it, and we're still trying again. What is the problem with the fact that, right, we've said, you know, Nigeria, we manufacture our goods, be it, you know, food goods or, you know, what have you, and then now to transport it to international markets, be it Africa or, elsewhere in the world. Why do we have, such an issue being able to manage this last aspect of making money from whatever we produce?
Thank you. The problem is structural. It's multidimensional, basically both soft and hard infrastructure. We have laws that go back to the colonial era that divides all our countries, that makes interaction extremely difficult. We have issues of infrastructure like roads, like rail, airports, aviation, that have made it very difficult. They are almost like structurally fixed within our continent. For example, if you want to travel from a place like Abidjan to Lagos, the other day, someone paid $1,600. It's like going from Lagos to, not even Abuja. Yeah, Abuja, or maybe let's say it's even. So you have all of these rules that are so stuck in our systems, beyond the physical infrastructure. And they will take lots of effort. And I think that's why the Africa Continental Free Trade Area was established, to ensure that we minimize or remove some of these barriers. There are barriers that are locked in for a long time. And we just have to make concerted effort. And the example you are quoting is correct. For example, there was a report by Financial Times many years ago that shows that moving goods from Shanghai to Lagos is far cheaper than moving goods from Lagos mainland to Apapa port. And this is the fact that manufacturers, exporters, they face everything. There was a report also in, I think, Guardian about 2-3 years ago, that shows that the kinds of rules and institutional barriers for exporters to take goods from Nigeria to outside of the country is so difficult that many of them choose rather to go empty-handed, to go empty with their vessels, because of the, sorry to say, a lot of it is also corruption. All agencies want to collect their own. I think I can't remember very correctly now, but about 22 different posts. Everybody wants to collect something. Everybody wants to extract some rent. So many people who import things into Nigeria, rather than take our goods, our products, and I will prefer manufactured products rather than raw materials out of the country, they go empty. And you can verify this. It's in a report, a very extensive report by The Guardian. And I think other media outlets also followed up on that report. So, and this is why, for example, the Africa Development Bank under Dr. Adishton actually put up and Integrate Africa as one of the 5 basic pillars of developing the region. You remember we have the high 5, and one of the high 5s was actually Integrate Africa. And the bank did it quite a lot. I left there last year, and I hope it continues. And this is not just limited to from airport and ports to outside. It's also within our country. I mean, just go all over the country. I've seen a lot of effort by the current government in fixing the roads. I was pleasantly surprised on the Benin-Lagos road the other day. A lot of efforts are going, but historically, it's been difficult. Okay. In the state where I am, for example, in Oyo State, and I will give this example later, one of the big things that the governor has done is to open up hinterland. Those are the things that make movement of goods and services easy, and goods and services cheap.
Well, we'll come to the intra-national issues there, Prof. But the one that was made known by no less an industrialist in the country than Alhaji Aliko Dangote, definitely isn't something that it's not a causery statement. It is something that's, I think from my naive perspective, Aliko Dangote isn't someone who would say anything until he has felt the pinch for a bit. And I think that must have really hurt for a bit. And from what you're saying, it means that it is not just something that is just happening, it's something that's been on for a long time. And if this has been on for such a long time, and successive governments continue to talk about the economy, then what do we need to do? What needs to be done? We have had issues raised with a minister in charge of supervising the ports at some point. And we've asked the question, why do we have so many agencies of government at the ports? Why can't there be just one-stop shop that addresses everything once and for all? What do you think can be done to bring down this unnecessary bureaucracy and unnecessary costly bottlenecks? The taxation is probably one of them, where, with this rearrangement of taxes and all, do you think that's a step to help? What are the things that you think need to be done seriously and as quickly as possible to eliminate these issues?
I think you just need to clear them away from the ports, if I can put it bluntly. I think it was done actually during President Buhari's time at some point, but it didn't last more than maybe 3-4 months. They were back. I recall that the vice president then used to go to the airport and all of that. They announced it. But the institutional rigidity that we have is such that people don't feel accountable. And I believe that we just need more severe oversight, more severe punishment for bad behavior. If we have to make progress, we have to institutionalize things not based on friendship or, oh, because the current somebody is my friend, we can't touch him. I know how difficult it is. You are going to the realm of political economy on what government itself should be. And one of the things that defines underdevelopment is, what people describe as weak governance. So you put something in place, you ensure that that thing is sustained over a long period and forever, actually. So it has to be a decision by the government itself, at the highest level, to say, look, enough of this. The issue of multiple agencies in the port, at the airports, and all of that, is a decision that has to be made collectively by the government of the day and say, look, this is harming us too much. In fact, I just didn't want to quote the wrong figures. The figures are humongous. What we lose, $250 billion, I remember, or something every week or something like that, from that report, that we lose by not having a smooth passage of goods from our country, by having people penalized so much that they are discouraged from exporting, by getting to a point where a lot of entrepreneurs prefer to smuggle through the road, through Cotonou, Benin, and all of those places. So it harms us unless we are self-sabotaging ourselves. That's when we don't take action on this. So this is, for me, economically existential, that government must act to deal with the issue. And Nigeria is a country that must show we have the best basis to export things, manufacture. A lot of people will like to export. They would like to, and of course there are a lot of other, soft infrastructure issues, certification, all of those things that makes our export very expensive. But this one we can tackle almost immediately. If the president tomorrow, like he did with subsidy, and say enough, and say this is gone, who is going to oppose the president? Who is going to say, President, you can't say it? I remember a story I had many years ago when, the reform people, a minister was preaching the reform of the ports. And I think it was Dr. Addition was preaching the reform. He was giving the Tangier Med in Morocco as an example. If you go to that port, it's the place is it's a cluster of manufacturing, of automobile, of all manner of light, medium industries. And the minister then was saying, look, a port should not be a place where you are just collecting money and taxes. A port should be a place of production.
So like
and this is what Tangier Med is.
So
and the customs, the head of customs, you know what he said? He said, oh, gone are the good days of Nigerian custom.
Wow.
It's a mindset. So we have to first deal with the mindset. We have to educate our officials that our ports are not ports where you extract rent, where you punish those who are making efforts.
But aren't they also under pressure, Prof? Aren't they also under pressure, these agencies, Standards Organization of Nigeria, for instance, the customs and immigration, aren't they also under pressure to collect revenue, to hit a particular target? Because maybe that's one of the reasons they also have that problem.
So this is the mindset I'm talking about. You know, the last statement I said is about mindset.
Okay.
You know, why is it that others are doing? And in any case, each time someone tells me that, oh, this is just Nigeria, it can never work. Oh, and I'm asking myself, why are we different? We have normalized the abnormality. We can't just be different and expect a different outcome. This is why, for example, we are as poor as we are. So we have to change it.
Okay, Prof. So still on this issue, because I know that there are a number of other things we need to talk about. Still on this issue, the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, said that he is targeting a $1 trillion or so economy for Nigeria. And in the maritime space, we hear that we lose billions every month or every year. And now we're talking about even in exports and imports, we're losing in hundreds of millions of dollars as well.
Billions,
Billions. So is this whole $1 trillion, is it just a pipe dream? How can they be achieved? Or rather, maybe I should put it a little more positively. If those things, if the vision of the president is going to be anywhere achieved, it has to be we have to make some serious sacrifices and pay some costs. And some of them could involve political costs, right?
Yeah. Look, see, this president has demonstrated courage. He has demonstrated courage. Removing the subsidy was courage. Harmonizing the exchange rate was courage. So I believe that if people articulate this thing very well to him, I'm sure he probably won't hesitate to do it. If you want to grow to $1 trillion economy, let me break it down into, say, sectors. Every sector has to make contribution, from agriculture to manufacturing to the broader industrial space, to tourism, to infrastructure, ports, and all of this. Like you said, all of them must make their contribution, and then you add it up. And that's where you get the aggregate GDP of the country. Now, for you to achieve $1 trillion economy, right today we are about 250, 270 or something, under 300 billion. It means that you have to triple the current GDP for us to achieve $1 trillion economy. Now, according to the law, the economic law, if you want to achieve that, for example, in the next 7 years, the economy must grow at 10% growth per year. the economy must go at 10%. If we want to achieve $1 trillion economy, in other words, you double. So if you want to, if you want to double the GDP, you have to grow at 10% over the 7 years. So now imagine, we're actually at a quarter of that. Theoretically, which means you may have to grow at about 15%, which is almost a pipe dream, because right now we're under 4%. So, but let's just say that we are targeting 10, 15 years because there's no magic to it. Any person can say whatever they like. We'll all be here by God's grace in 5 years. It will not happen. If they want to tell the truth to the authorities, you must take those hard decisions and ensure that every sector is making huge contribution, particularly manufacturing, agriculture, tourism. And tourism is also impacted by aviation, ports, and all of this, by all of these things that we just spelled out, inability to export, wasting almost $250 billion. So the authority must look at every sector and give them the targets, and then institute the monitoring and evaluation instrument to say every 6 months I want to, and I understand there was such a thing when the government came. I'm not sure whether it's working, to say every 6 months I want to know what you have done. I want to see how far you have made the contribution to my goal, to my vision. You know, I think at this forum, one time I gave you an example of a leader in Korea who, when they set up their steel project in 1980, they meet the president. I'm not talking about the minister. The president was meeting with the group every week to for them to present to him what has changed from last week. Because they saw, they used to say, steel is power, steel is security. So it is for every country. You have to identify your leading sectors and say, without us achieving structural change in the economy, without us, say, improving our agriculture, without us saying, including all of this, 1, 2, 3, we are not going to achieve the $1 trillion.
Okay. Now, Prof, you talked about some sectors, and the one that seems to be playing in our favor as a country over the years, over the decades, as far back as I can remember, has been agriculture. And every time we left agriculture, we had problems. During the military era, I think sometime in the 70s and into the 90s, we were mostly not talking about agriculture. The only time we kind of spaded it was around the time we were talking about the Better Life program of Miriam Babangida at the time, and the Directorate for Food, Roads and Rural Infrastructure of the Babangida government at the time. Those were the only times during that spread, if I recall correctly, that any government spoke about agriculture in the military era that we had at the time. And throughout that time, we had problems when we were not talking about agriculture. And now we are trying to bring about agriculture, and we are hearing of all kinds of things happening all over the place. What do you think we need? What's a soft angle to it? I don't know whether if it's a soft angle that we can use to activate the communities, because I think that's where it all starts. There is no farm at the Akpakpa ports. There is no farm at One ports, but all goods that will go out of Nigeria will go to those places, whether in processed form or in raw forms. What are the things that are missing? I mean, you've talked about us producing. I mean, you wrote the book in 2016 titled From Consumption to Production. So if we're going to produce, it's going to be at the ports, and it is from the ports that those things, it's not going to be at the ports, it's going to be in the communities. And from those communities that they move their goods and all to the. So what are the things that need to be done to activate our people to produce enough? Because there's those who say, what are we exporting when we can't even produce enough for ourselves? So if we're able to produce enough for ourselves, we might have some to export. So what are your thoughts on how we activate communities so that we can at least, scale up production and be able to achieve some of these objectives you're talking about?
Thank you. No, thank you very much, Ayo. So let me sort of prefix that with 2 or 3 points, and then I'll explain how I see the community level improvement and revitalization. First, we make the assumption when we do macro issues that there's fair distribution and efficient market in our country. All those who designed this so-called structural adjustment, trickle down, which we actually call trickle down economy, is that they assume efficient market system and a fair distribution channel in our country. I mean, you just need to look at the subsidy removal. And that was one thing that I think the president was spot on, removed it. It became an avenue for the rich to get richer. NASA, if you remember, there was an organization called NASA that was set up in those days to give credit to commercial agriculture through the banks. It was working very efficiently. They were working, default rate was like maybe less than 1%. And millions of farmers were rich with credit. But again, it suffered state capture. Some individuals captured it. They dealt with it, all this anchor borrower stuff. So, market is not efficient. Distributions is not fair. Number 2, poor public service delivery. We don't have. Effort have been made, power, water. When last did you ever see community, what they call a public water system? Everybody has borehole in their homes. The third thing with trickle down for me is this savings trap. When we do reform and people benefit, they benefit largely at a level not less than 20% of the richest. That's the truth. You call it wealth concentration. So, and those who save are those who are rich. They save 40, 50%, but it's all packed into financial assets, or they ship them abroad to buy more houses in Dubai, everywhere. So a country where you don't have a culture of production and manufacturing, the channels to invest at in that lower levels to benefit the poor is absent. So so you have a perpetuation of wealth concentration. And now what has happened? Not just now, it's always been like that. If you just focus on the macro level. And the last thing I want to say is that you will continue to exclude the poor because opportunity is not freely available. Talents is available, but opportunities are not there. An illiterate person is not educated. He has no connection to anybody. He has no primary, secondary, whatever it is. And this is why university, primary, and secondary education is something that had been universal. Japan was 100% literate in 1922. So when those rural people, and I come to your direct question now, the people in those rural communities and peri-urban areas, as we call them, are the majority of our population. They are where the exclusion is the most severe. They are the most punished by market forces. They are those who are living $2 a day or below. They are the people who cannot afford to eat 2-3 times a day. And that is where the poverty siege has to be broken. My point is that this commission that the president has established is one of the most wonderful ideas, I believe. The Southwest Commission, and I'm mentioning that in particular because currently we are working with them. We came up with an idea called the transformed communities. We abbreviate it to TRANSCOM. And TRANSCOM is an idea to have a systematic and organized community all across the Southwest and any other state region that wants to do it. Basically, that is how it works. You look at villages. When you drive across our communities, you see one village here, 2 villages here, 10 huts, 10 houses, or something close to a house. They are all isolated. The greatest problem of rural community is isolation. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they don't work hard. They are isolated. Isolation from power, energy, from water, from internet, from social protection of any kind. They are isolated. So you drive another 10 kilometers, you don't see anybody. And then you see their children carrying water on their head. You see children walking from one village to a school that is 20 kilometers away. They get raped, they get kidnapped, they get all kinds of issues. So we came up with the idea of Transcom. And Transcom will be an aggregation of several villages, between 2,000 to 8,000 people. In that space, we have what we call 7 pillars of community development. You put the most foundational infrastructure, which is power through grid system. You put water through boreholes, whatever it is. You put social protection, you put schools, clinics, basic things that make life livable. We have actually started experimenting in the Southwest to say that, look, this can work. So by the time in each of the 137 local governments of the Southwest, you have multiple of such Transcoms. We did a model, and I took a cue from the $2 per day poverty level. We did a model, and we showed that if we move people from $2 to $10 to $15 per day, it almost added about $120 billion to the economy in fact, Oyo State alone, and to the Nigerian economy. So that again comes to your $1 trillion economy. And I believe that making the effort to change the ecosystem of our rural communities will make us achieve the $1 trillion economy faster. In fact, in the next 5-10 years, Nigeria can get to $1 trillion economy. If states, governments, if the commissions focus their energy on simply changing those ecosystems, ensure that these people can wake up every day. You go to a Transcom will, at the center of the Transcom that we are building,
yes,
is the productive aggregation, agriculture process. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if I can come in there. So, I mean, they're laudable initiatives, and I think they're interventionist initiatives vis-a-vis, you know, the regional commissions, and then these initiatives are coming in to kind of help to buffer whatever it is they're going to do. So does this mean that, you know, the macro economic policies, you know, are not enough to, you know, benefit the poor and pull the people out of poverty without, you know, these other interventions that you're talking about?
Definitely. Everywhere throughout all of history, it has never been enough. It's an illusion that is easy to live with. Policymakers may want to live with that and say, oh, we've done all we can, you know. But it doesn't work like that. It will never work like that. So you have to have direct intervention, not by sharing money. You know, I get it, that it's easy for altruism, you know, human altruism. Oh, people gather in your house every day, you share 200 naira to them. It's not going to change their lives. The easiest way to change the lives of people is free education at the primary, secondary level. You must make sure that everyone have their own human agency and give them agency to work, wake up every day and go to work. China never did all of this conditional transfer. They never did it. They took 870 million people out of poverty over those years of breakneck growth, 10%, 9% for 30 years, and they were doubling their GDP every year. But one of the sources of those growth was those rural communities. They changed it. I am a witness to it. I wrote a book with a Chinese fellow, Chinese School of Social Policy. I can't even remember the name of the book again. I was in China almost 2-3 times every quarter when I was in the UN, and we worked with these folks. And you could see, they call it the China scale and scope. This rapidity with which they totally broke down and demolished the old order of a rural community that is poor, destitute, devastated by old mines. You know, I saw a particular community with the mines had destroyed those places. They just took it down and built high rises. And then they gave all those who have land there, they gave them shares in the high rise. And then, of course, the most important thing, and I keep emphasizing, it's not altruism, is to now give them work to do. You wake up every day and you are going to job, a work. So in our Transcom example, for example, in a place called Fapote in Obomanshaw, near Obomanshaw, the Bale there gave us immediately 20 acres of land. And he said to me, anything you want, we'll provide for you.
Wow.
I got a friend, during this, we had a meeting recently, and this fellow, they are building grid system. They immediately went there. They have built something like that in Odorobo in Ondo State. It's working seamlessly for the last 2 years. People are paying about 670 kVA. In that community.
You know, Prof, we could go on and on. I sincerely apologize. We could go on and on about this because it's all sounding so exciting, but unfortunately we are completely out of time. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how does this Transcom that you're talking about, how does it differ, for instance, from the SAPZ, the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, you know, that the AFDB has spoken about? You know, but maybe one of these days we'll have to bring you back to have this conversation with us.
Let me just explain one.
Okay.
SAPZ, fantastic idea. It stands at a higher level.
Okay.
So what you are saying now is that you build these zones, but who feed them with all the things, the raw materials? So it is those community level. In fact, with the SAPZ, we also have what we call agri transformation centers. These are my own inspirations. That beyond just having an ATC, build the whole community. They become more productive.
So essentially,
they can protect themselves.
Yeah, essentially you're saying that the SAPZs are just processing zones that need to be fed.
Mostly processing zones, yeah.
So they need to be fed what to produce, and this Transcom initiative...
with cassava, with sesame, with all of that.
Okay.
So you need those communities as the resilient backbone of our society.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Professor Banji Oyelaran-Oyinka is a professor of economics, innovation, and technology management in developing countries. He's also been former senior special advisor on industrialization to the president of the AFDB, among several other things that he's done all through his career. One of these days, hopefully we'll get to it. Thank you again, Prof, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ira. Thank you.
I'm sure some people seeing that will say, this is an oxymoron. Because trauma is bad. And now you say you want to maximize it. Do you want to maximize my problem? Oh, well. I draw something from one of the ancient scripts that says all things work together. They never work apart.
And for good.
They also work together for good.
For good.
So bad can work together for good. So trauma can work together for good. You are the one that just said it. So.
Voice is for good.
So we know that, you know, trauma is bad. It creates in you what they call a survival mindset that can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and all of that. And if they are not resolved, they tend to practically alter your life and your living. Such that, I mean, we have spoken about trauma on this program like 3 to 4 times back to back. Understanding trauma, parent-child trauma, parenting trauma, and coping with trauma, and all of those things. But now, if you can't cope, can you convert? And that's what this conversation this morning is about. And we have Miracle Ihuoma with us. He's a clinical psychologist and family life therapist. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
The first time you came here, you were telling us how easy it is to untrauma yourself. There's no such word, I know, but I didn't know there was. How many years ago did we start saying unfriend?
Right.
Instead of just kill, you say unalive.
Unalive.
So if I say on trauma, I'm creative as well. So first of all,
get to the dictionary. Don't worry.
Let's first of all ask you: is it possible to maximize trauma from your experience?
Yes, it is. It is. And just like you rightly said earlier, that all things can then work together for good, even though it was a bad experience, it can then be converted to something that ultimately leads to purpose, to healing, and to a lesson that even other people can begin to learn from. And we have, for example, people who have converted their trauma into a testimony, if I might use that word. I can give examples like people like Joyce Meyer, for example, who was raped by her father consistently until she was maybe 16 years old, and maybe even got pregnant at some point. But then as a result of that trauma, of course, it wasn't that the trauma was a good thing, but she was able to maximize it to become something that she now uses as an inspiration for younger people to say it doesn't matter what you're going through, you can get healed and you can find purpose within it. Oprah Winfrey is another example as well, who also went through a series of abuse for many years and then converted that into a strong story that drove her, up the ranks in her career, and also has become an inspiration to many people. Became the richest black woman and the most influential on many levels as well. So people can practically learn from their trauma, convert it to a testimony, that others can learn from.
So let's delineate or differentiate between maximizing trauma and coping, using what you call coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Some people use their trauma or traumatic experience become their advocacy campaigns, where they use that advocacy to cope with their own situation. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Healing is not the same thing as coping. Okay. And we must understand what coping is. Coping mechanisms in themselves are not wrong, because that's your brain or nervous system's way of creating a defense for what happened to you before not to repeat itself again. So if somebody, for example, goes through a traumatic experience, they can develop avoidance, where they now don't want to form intimate relationships with other people anymore. That's their brain's way of trying to avoid that same abandonment that they may have gone through in the past. But it only serves them in the interim, because ultimately it's going to be to their own detriment. So that's coping. That's not healing, because it's going to affect their relationships with family members, with their partners if they decide to maybe get married or something. So even though that may have shielded them from intimate relationships that created the abandonment in the first place, it doesn't deal with the issue from the root, which is now healing. Healing is now that I have confronted the issue, I've found perspective, and now I can confidently go into really intimate relationships, form those intimacies and bonds with other people, while I have learned the lessons, that of what happened to me in the past. That's how healing is different from coping.
Right, and you stated that when someone is going through this trauma, there's a state of overthinking that asks, why me? And there's also productive thinking that asks that, how do I get out of this? How does this person navigate this trauma storm to get to that productive thinking level when they're still stuck in the why?
Yes. So you must be objective, right? When you're going through a traumatic experience, or if you feel like you are traumatized based on an incident in the past, you must understand that asking yourself why me would only keep you wallowing in the mud of the trauma that you've gone through. But shifting your focus to now ask, okay, how can I get out of this? How can I make progress? How can I make the necessary adjustments would drive you into finding lasting solutions that would effectively and objectively help you come out of that traumatic state that you are in. So yes, you must understand the difference between why me and how. Yeah, so how helps you to see the strategies, right, and then helps you to see how you can come out of it. Another question that you can also ask is why, not why me. Why helps you to dig into the root cause of why what happened to you. That can help you gain perspective. That can now make your how more effective. Because sometimes people ask how without asking why. And if you ask how without asking why, you might be developing strategies for the wrong issue.
What's the difference between why
and why
vis-a-vis the how?
Okay, the
how. You know, there's a why me that makes you wallow. Yeah. There's a why which makes you think that why did this happen?
Exactly.
And there's a how of getting out. So how do you marry the why and the how to get out of it? How do you marry those two?
So the why helps you to do what we call root cause analysis.
Yeah.
So you are able to know what exactly caused this, what exactly brought me to this state. And that helps you to now know what the real issue is. Because sometimes I've always said that the problem is not always the problem, right? Sometimes people think about a particular problem, and then that's not really the problem. What the problem is might even be deeper than what you think the problem is. So asking why helps you get to the root of what the problem really is. And that now gives you perspective as to how you now need to resolve that issue. For example, if you don't ask why, and you just think that, oh, my relationships are not working. Maybe I need to learn more about relationships. Maybe I need to learn more about how to relate with people. Now, that is how, but because you haven't gotten the root cause, which is why, you might be solving the wrong problem. The why, if you ask yourself why, you might not realize that, okay, maybe I'm actually dealing with abandonment from my childhood. And that is what I need to deal with. So once I deal with that abandonment issue, then I can relate better with people. So you see how why is different from, or can help you even understand why. How?
It's something like, someone can be in a situation, and rather than first of all diagnose what the problem is, the first thing you are looking for, essentially what you're saying is, when someone is in a situation, rather than first of all find out the root cause and all of that, some kind of diagnosis, you look for medication.
Exactly.
And the medication doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you now say you have village people.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Now, we know that trauma is damaging. Let's be clear. It's very, very damaging. It's bad. It's very, very limiting. And it's all mental most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not what happened. It's our perception of what happened.
Exactly.
Our ownership of what happened, and our reluctance or inability to get past what happened, so we're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
This much you explained to us the last time you spoke about this. Now, if one is going to maximize it, what are the first steps? From what you said the last time, you talked about, first of all, accepting that this happened. So after all of that, there are some who don't even want to ever go there again. They don't want to refer to it, they don't want to talk about it, they don't even want to be identified with anything of that experience. So how do you maximize that if you don't want to revisit that experience in any way, manner, shape, or form?
Yeah, that's also a form of defense mechanism. That's a defense mechanism right there. There is a defense mechanism, for example, called denial. Sometimes people can deny what has happened to them. They can actually deny it or deny the effect or the magnanimity of what happened to them. And sometimes people can also display another defense mechanism called repression, where sometimes people can literally forget what has happened to them in the past, so that they can't even remember it at all. So that even when somebody was there when it happened and is trying to remind them, they can't remember it. Yeah, because they have taken or pushed that traumatic experience into the recesses of their subconscious or unconscious mind. But it's there, but they don't, and that's the brain's way of protecting itself again, so that that pain doesn't keep resurfacing. But that is not healing. It shows that the person is still dealing with that trauma, when you know you have healed from a trauma, when you can talk about the experience and then you no longer have the emotional connection that you had with it when it happened. That's when you know you have healed from it. Yeah. So how to move from accepting it is the next thing. After accepting it, the next thing you need to do is to now look for an empowering meaning, because we are meaning making machines, MMM, right? Every one of us, we are meaning making machines. And just like you rightly said, what trauma is usually is not what happens to us. It's how we interpret what happens to us. Yeah. In fact, I would like to put it this way: it's not what happens to us; it is what happens in us. So it is usually our perception of what happens to us. It's the meaning we attach to that experience. That's why the same thing can happen to two people, and they respond to it differently. For one, it is maybe a tribulation, maybe it was a difficult time. For another person, it was a traumatic experience, majorly because of how they interpreted the situation. So a step further from accepting it would be to now give that experience an empowering meaning. To say what empowering meaning, it doesn't have, empowering meanings are not always positive meanings, but they are just meanings that are rational enough to move you from where you are to where you need to be. And I'll give you an example. If something happens to somebody, you can't say that it did not happen, or it is well. You know, it might not necessarily be well, but you can give an empowerment to say, okay, let's say it was loss. Okay, yeah, I lost this person, but I believe that I can grow to become a responsible member of the society, you know, because there are other people who can also play the same role that this person played in my life. Now, that is not necessarily a positive meaning, but it's an empowering meaning. It's a rational meaning that moves you, that helps you to think about it rationally, instead of just, you know, wallowing in. Because many times, how traumatic experiences develop is people give meanings. People give experiences or events negative meanings. You know, things like, wow, my life is over, my life is finished, I'm good for nothing, I can no longer have good relationships, and things like that. So the moment you begin to give empowering meanings to events, then healing has started. Right? And then you also want to look for a community, because healing can hardly happen alone. We need a community of people. We need support structure and support systems that would help us go through that season of our lives. Could be friends, could be family, you know, as the case may be. Yeah.
I want to ask you a bit of a difficult question here, particularly about this particular perspective of maximizing trauma. Because many people are living with all kinds of things and they don't even know how to get past it. For instance, in my research, I discovered that it is possible to have a blind spot and not even know it's a blind spot.
True.
For instance, someone who has gone through some kind of traumatic experience can develop what they call hypervigilance.
Yes.
They can think that hypervigilance is wisdom. Meanwhile, it is fear. They can develop what they call emotional independence, which initially can look like strength, but it is actually inability to trust. They can look at people pleasing. It can look like kindness on its own, but it's really self-protection. We can go on and on and on like that. So anyone who is going to maximize their traumatic experience, some people are never going to go back into politics again because of the traumatic experience they had before. So anyone who is going to maximize trauma, what are the safeguards? That, okay, I'm out of it now. Now I want to maximize, because trauma has an effect on you. You said it the last time you came here. Trauma builds up in the body, causes diseases and all of that. But so they can also help you to develop resilience, develop more empathy and all of that. How do we ensure that the person is working around safeguards and not on tethers?
Yes, and that's where, just like we said earlier, you must differentiate between coping and healing. You must understand that the fact coping mechanisms are not necessarily healing, or defense mechanisms are not necessarily healing. So your ability to be able to go through the healing process come out of it on the other side, have a different perspective where you are no longer reacting to what has happened, but you can say that you've actively learned from that situation, and you don't have a negative outlook or a negative behavior attitude as a result of the traumatic experience. That's when you can say that you've healed from it. For example, where it is that you are not hyper vigilant, but at the same time you are not careless as well. That's when you have learned from it. Where you are not avoidant, at the same time you are not anxious. You are secured in your relationships. That's when we know, okay, that you have actually healed from that particular trauma. So it's the ability to heal from the traumatic experience, and not just to go through go through the motions of trying to cope or trying to defend in terms of defense mechanisms now, psychological defense mechanisms. That's when we know that, okay, you have actually healed. And it's also important that, and you mentioned blind spot earlier, which is very critical, because your blind spot is what others know about you that you don't know about yourself. That's basically what blind spot is. And that's why sometimes it's important to get feedback from people. It's better to be accountable, to say, okay, what do you think about me? What do you think about this? What are the things that you have noticed in this area of my life? So get feedback from people. Sometimes people will tell you things that will surprise you. You'll be like, that's not me. But if 1, 2, 3, 4 people say the same thing, then it might be that that's you. It might just be a blind spot. It might be something people know about you that you don't know about yourself. And we all have it. We all have blind spots. Then you now begin to work on those areas that you've gotten feedback on, and maybe stay accountable to somebody else as well, and say, okay, you know what, I want you to keep me accountable. It could be your husband, it could be your wife, it could be a friend, it could be your therapist, whoever it is. I want to work on these areas of my life. Could you keep me accountable? Whenever I slip up here, let me know. Whenever I say this, whenever I do this, I might not know I'm doing it, but please call my attention to it so that I can recalibrate and reposition myself. And that would help you, for example, heal and deal with those issues.
How easy is that, though?
It's as easy as I've said it.
Oh, no. Because sometimes, pride could come in and people really don't want to believe that they're doing that, especially. And then, probably they won't even ask those questions of others in the first place.
So what's important to you, healing or your pride? So you make your choice.
Okay. But pride, there are those who say pride is a form of fear. And fear, I just recently discovered, can materialize in so many ways that we don't even know. Many people are living with fear and they don't even know that they're living with fear. Anxiety is a form of fear. Pride, is a form of fear. I don't want this to happen to me and all of that. And these things kill our productivity, but we don't even know. How easy is it? And I will borrow from Joker's skepticism.
I'm not skeptical.
How easy is it to become wholesome? And how long does it have to take to become wholesome after a particularly traumatic experience? Before you answer that question, the person who caused you that trauma, you are still living with the person. You still have to live with the person. Not because, and we know that you people have told us, you can't heal when you were at the same place where you were hurt. But here now, you can't go anywhere else. So how do you live a wholesome life when the circumstances don't seem to change?
So it's, again, it's not what happens, it's how you interpret what happens. Okay. So I don't know who said that you can't heal where in the place where the trauma was caused, but I think you can actually. You can actually heal if, for example, just like if you're stuck, say with your partner, with your parent, you can't leave that environment. What do? You have to look for a way to heal. You don't understand that. And that's part of what we do, for example, even in therapy, in counseling, to say that if somebody else caused you trauma, I might not be able to change that person. And you come for therapy, for example, I can't change the other person. The person is not in front of me. You are the one in front of me. What I can do is to change you so that even though the person doesn't change, your attitude changes towards the person because your perception of what the person does has changed. Because that's what determines reaction and response. To say that it is not events, It is not our awareness of events and our environment that causes emotions and actions. It is our perception or belief or thoughts about events, about our awareness of events, that actually determines our emotions and our actions. So if I can work on you to change how you are viewing that event, viewing that person, then I can actually make that adjustment in your mind. In fact, I can give you a typical example, or illustration to say that. So there's something we use in therapy. It's called the jar of life, and it has 3 levels. It has upbringing, it has environment, it has significant emotional experiences. So where we highlight, oh, these are the things that happen in my upbringing, these are the things that happen in my environment growing up, and these are the significant emotional experiences I've had. Significant emotional experiences are experiences that are significant enough to have altered, changed, or influenced your beliefs, values, or perception of yourself and the world. Now, what we do is, if somebody's causing you distress, let's say you have, it could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be a partner, right? One of the things we say is, go and then write down these 3 things about your partner, how they grew up, the kind of environment they grew up in, the kind of emotional experience that they have had. After doing that, one of the things that changes is a perception of the person that did it towards their partner, because they now begin to see the kind of environment their partner grew up in. They see the kind of environment they grew up in. They see the kind of upbringing they had. They see the kind of experience that they have had.
That has formed them.
That has formed who they are. So now judgment is replaced with empathy. So at the end of the day, we now ask, somebody who has gone through all of this, what kind of person would that person be? What kind of behavior should we be expecting? And you realize that it's nothing short of what they're experiencing already. So you don't understand why they are behaving the way they are behaving, because we are products of our trauma. We are products of these 3 things. So it then means that even though that person doesn't change, I can understand why they behave the way they behave. So now they would still talk to me the way they talk to me. They will still behave the way they behave, but my perception of them and why they do what they do has changed. So my response will be different. I will no longer be tensed up and be angry like I used to be. I will understand, because I have now replaced judgment with empathy. I can now say, wow, I understand where you're coming from. I understand what you're going through, right? And that changes the dynamics. I am not leaving them, but how I am relating with them has completely changed.
And this is really very, very interesting. But I still want to, because that person that is now empathetic now has to continue to live with that same person, no doubt. But how does that person resolve the issues when they can still see their tormentor, if I can use that term? Because that fellow is still right in front of them.
Yeah.
And you said something, the last time you were here, that we carry these things around anyway. Unfortunately, it is possible for us to so internalize them that they become our own default behavior.
Yeah.
You hate what your dad did to you, unfortunately you became your dad.
True.
You hate what your mom did to you, unfortunately you became your mom. So how do we escape that trap?
Yeah. So it is many times, somebody rightly said that we have learned from experience and people don't learn from experience. And many times people say, oh, I've learned from this experience, but they haven't really learned from it. Many times people say, I will not do what my dad did. I will never do what my mom did. I will be completely different. And they end up being exactly just like you said, sometimes even worse. Yeah, it's like, press down, shaking together and running over. They become more than even what their dad was or their mom was, because they were not intentional and deliberate in making the necessary adjustments that they need to make. Because one of the things that anyone who grew up in a certain environment must do, especially environments that you don't want to replicate that are negative, you must expose yourself to a counter environment. Now, it doesn't have to be as much as you did growing up, but you must be intentional in exposing yourself. For example, if you grew up in a family where, in a dysfunctional family where maybe your dad divorced your mom, you see a lot of abuse, abandonment, and things like that, it's important to get another model family where you can see how a family is supposed to work, how a family is supposed to be. If you don't deliberately seek for that, look for that, learn from that, you would most likely, even when you don't want to, reproduce what you have seen, because that's how our psychology works. We reproduce what we have seen. Over time, it enters into our consciousness and formed the boundaries of our values and our beliefs about life. So it's important to now deliberately see an alternative that counters what you have seen over time, so that you can have, okay, a reference point of what works. This is how family is supposed to be. This is how your husband is supposed to behave. This is how your wife is supposed to behave. If you don't have that, you will reproduce what you've seen over time.
You know, we thank you very much for your thoughts this morning. I was seeing a video yesterday. I didn't, maybe I will go back to it, of, you won't believe it,
What?
Sylvester Stallone. Saying that his father was so abusive.
Why do we have
that he drove him. In fact, said he didn't know. He thought that was the way things ought to be. So he didn't know better. So he was just, he became very virulent with life, drove himself hard, drove himself, you know, until later he now saw other family settings. Oh, really? Someone will say, okay, you know, you are talking to your dad. As in, you and your dad, you are having conversation.
Having a conversation.
Banter with your dad.
My daddy said, really, you and your dad, you have conversation, you know. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Miracle Ihoma is a clinical psychologist and family life therapist. Well, he's played the role of our lifestyle guest and artist of the week today.
Drum roll. We didn't do the drum roll for him.
No, don't roll the drum.
Okay.
The next time he's coming, we'll roll it. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend. By the way, I hear tomorrow is it Mothering Sunday or Mother's Day? I don't even know which one it is. Amaya Makinde, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I'm Joker Rogers.
Happy Mother's Day.
Okay.